think we have a pretty good view of my work area here. Let me kind of arrange the lighting, and hopefully we'll have everything we need here at our fingertips. And I'm going to start with the first question that I get asked the most, and that is, why do you use Stampin' Up! Multi-Purpose Liquid Adhesive on so many of your cards? And so let me go and explain that. And I'm going to tell you the main reason that I like to use the glue is because I need the wiggle room. I am not the best at just laying something down and having it fit perfectly the first time, and so I like to have that little bit of wiggle room, and I'll show you what I mean here in a second. But this is what the multi-purpose liquid glue looks like, and typically when I'm opening up a brand new bottle, I'll just show you here, I will take off this little cellophane piece. And then the next thing that I like to do is I actually like to take off this cellophane piece as well. And let me explain my reasoning for that. So let me get this off. The reason I take this off, and the reason you're usually just seeing a white bottle, is it has nothing to do with the fact that I want to cover up the name. I don't care about that. It's because this little cellophane that's over the top can get really, really sticky if some glue gets onto it. And so typically when I'm working with my customers at Sunshine Club or something, I like my bottles just to be pure white without that little cello, because that cello will attract glue and stickiness like something you wouldn't believe. But once you have that cello off your glue bottle, it's really easy just to take a baby wipe and wipe off any stickiness. It comes right off. So that's why I do that. Then the other thing I do with my glue is that I keep it in a little container like this, and I pretty much just throw away the cap once I get it open, at least the one that I'm using personally, because I'm grabbing it all the time. And then occasionally, because once you have the cap thrown away, sometimes this bottom end here will clog up a little bit, so I have a dedicated paper piercing tool that I use to unclog my glue. So what I do is, if my glue is clogged up, and I don't think this one is because I was using it this morning and already did this, but I'll show you for the camera, and you can see just how gunky the end of this paper piercing tool is. But what I do, and forgive me for shaking, I'm not the best at Facebook Live, but I'm trying to get better. So thank you for your love. But what I do is I just insert this little tool into the bottle, put it in, and then I take it out, and then that will open it up for me so I can get a good line of glue on my projects. And then there's another really cool reason that I like to keep this handy, and I like it actually to have a sticky glue end to it. And the reason is because if I'm ever going to pick up a sequin, you know how difficult it can be, because first of all, these sequins are really little, and Stampin' Up! Has come out with even smaller sequins, and sometimes it's just so hard to grab them. But if you have a paper piercing tool that you've been using repeatedly to open up your glue bottles, you have a little self-made sequin picker-upper. Of course, now I inserted this in here, and because it was all fresh and kind of sticky, I'm getting a whole bunch. But typically, I can reach in and just grab one at a time like this, and then I can just put it down on my project wherever I want it. And one of the best ways, of course, to put it on your project is to put a dot of glue down, or you can use our fine tip glue pen, which I don't have right here. I'm not showing that at the moment. But if you use just a microscopic dot of the fine tip glue pen, you can take this little piece and just stick it on there. But this is a little just a little tip for you when you keep one of these dedicated paper piercing tools handy. All right, so that actually, the fine tip glue, I don't even have here because it's not something I typically use on a video, but I did want to share that with you. And you want to be sure that you use just a microscopic little bit. In fact, I have it here. I don't have the glue here to show, but I do have this little piece of paper where I did use the fine tip glue here and then here, and used my little paper piercing tool to put these down. And I did this in advance because I thought, oh my goodness, I'll be so shaky I won't be able to do it on video. Another thing you can do with the fine tip glue pen, which again, I don't actually use it that much on video, but it's an important product that you need to know about. I have this little dab of glue right here, and I did mess it up because I set something on top of it, but the fine tip glue dries glossy. So you know that wonderful stamp set we have in the holiday catalog called Half Full? It's that wine glass one. You can actually take your fine tip glue pen and just run it over the top of the wine that's in that wine glass, or run it all over the wine glass, and it'll be all glossy. It'll dry glossy, but you have to give it like 15-20 minutes to dry really, really well before you set something on top of it like I did. All right, so let's go back to wiggle room and using the glue here. Sorry, I got all distracted. What I'm going to do is show you how I do this, and I know many of you have seen this a million times, but there's a reason for the madness. I just do a fine little line like this, and I just put it right onto my cardstock, and I just center it in, and I have that wiggle room to make sure all 4 borders are nice and even. So I really, really love that. Another thing you can do with your glue is it is a very good product if you're conservative and you really like to save money on your adhesives. So if that's the case, I will show you what one of my downline does. Her name is Kathy T, and she is very conservative, and this is how she uses her glue. So she'll take her glue and she'll go dot, dot. She just will put a few dots on her project like this. I've seen her do this a million times. She just goes dot, 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 dot. You can see how very little glue that is. She will put it on her card, and I guarantee you it will hold just as well as mine did where I flipped it all the way around. The problem for me with going dot, 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 it takes too long and I'm too impatient. But you can see you still have the wiggle room, and you can be very, very conservative with your glue. So that is kind of another tip. All right, then I often get asked, why do I not put glue onto Whisper White and Very Vanilla? Let me show you a swap card I received. I'm not going to show you the front of the swap card because I don't want anyone to recognize it that I may be swapping with. But I am going to show you the inside of the swap card and what happens when you use glue on Whisper White or Very Vanilla. Can you see? I know that this would not show up in a video. So what I did is, I mean, it shows up perfect in real life, but what I did is I just took a pencil and I traced exactly where the bump was on the paper from the glue line. This does not show up the minute you put it onto your Whisper White or Very Vanilla. It'll take a couple months, but if you keep your cards for any length of time, you know, I've got sale bins. Well, I only do one craft show a year, and within a year, those glue lines would show up. And so that's my purpose for not using glue on Whisper White or Very Vanilla. There's a few other things I don't use glue on. I don't use glue typically on foil because sometimes the glue lines will show on foil. Of course, I don't use it on vellum. In fact, vellum is a whole nother animal, and I won't even get into it right now, but I don't use glue on vellum. So those are the things I don't use glue on. And then there are some things that just really work better with glue dots, and I'll get to that in a minute. So that's the answer to your question about why I don't use glue on this Whisper White or Very Vanilla. All right, so now let's talk a little bit about Snail. So here's what our Stampin' Up! Snail looks like. You can purchase it as just a regular adhesive that comes in a container, and then you can also get refills for it, which I really like. And I use a lot of this as well. And I've got one open here that looks like this. It has a little protector on the end that you can open up and close. And that's nice because I do tend to keep this in my on my counter in a little pail. And so I like to have that closed so it doesn't stick to anything. And let me show you a card of how I do my insides of my card, because everybody always asks me this too, or people that watch my videos. Every once in a while it'll show up on a comment section in YouTube. why do you do it this way? So I'm going to explain. So here is a card. And if I want to put on a panel on the inside, because this is when I typically do this. So of course, if I'm doing this on the outside and it's Whisper White or Very Vanilla, I would use Snail because that doesn't show any bump lines like glue does. But on the inside panel of my card, what I like to do is just one line at the top. And then I center it in, just like this. And again, I take my time a little bit with this because I want it to be even, and I don't have that wiggle room like I do with glue, because once it's down, it's down. And it's actually permanent, and it will tear the paper if you try to get it off. But with one strip at the top, I feel it lends more of an elegant feel to your card. If you've ever gotten a wedding invitation in the mail or an invitation to something that's really special, you may have noticed that there's a lot of looseness in the invitation, that there's a lot of flowingness to it. And that's what I like about the inside of my cards. It keeps them sort of loose and flowing, and I just feel it's a more elegant way to present your cards to someone. And it also saves on adhesive, although that is not the primary reason why I do it. I just think it's more elegant to just do one little layer at the top. But it does save on adhesive because you're not going all the way around. I feel like when you go all the way around, it just makes for such a tight feeling. It just doesn't look or feel relaxed. And I think that's important when you give a card. You want it to, I don't know, be elegant and relaxed looking. Okay, so that's my reason for that. Now, occasionally on videos, I will use fast views, and I do have a tip for you with fast views as well. The main thing to remember with fast views, let me show you what it looks like. So this is how you purchase it from Stampin' Up. And of course, this is one of those items that also can be used as a refill. The main thing to remember with fast views is that it's about twice as strong as Snail. So it's really good for putting together boxes or 3D projects or something that's going to get a lot of maybe wear and tear, like a pullout on your card or something like that. There are some tips though. I did not know this. Once I learned this tip, I have forever been able to use fast views with no problem. And it's really not even about the check mark or anything that you've heard along the way. It's really about when you install your refill, because my problem is I could always get the initial fast views in this container to work really well. But then once I put in the refill, then it would have all kinds of snarly problems, and sometimes I'd end up throwing it out because it would get all messed up. But there is something you should know when you put in a refill of fast views, and that is this. Let's see if I can stand up here and look in the camera so you can see what I'm showing you. There is a little tiny peg right here at the front, and it's a little more reinforced than it used to be when Stampin' Up! First introduced it, so it's a little bit bigger. But if that peg breaks off, you will find that your refill will not sit in there properly. And what I was doing is when I was filling my refill, I didn't even see this peg, and so I was just jamming it in there and not making sure that that peg was in that little slot. And then sometimes it would break off, and then that was the trouble I had. But now, with the reinforced peg and me knowing about the peg, which makes a big difference, I don't have near the problem, and I don't have any problems anymore at all with refills, so that's a really good thing. All right, so now let me show you how I use fast views. It's not, and like I said, it's not even really about the check mark. When the fast views was first introduced, we were all told, you know, put your finger at the top, go like this, and then check mark it to break it off cleanly. Well, you know, human nature, we like to do everything to the nth degree, so some of us were really pressing hard and we're really check marking hard, and then sometimes that would cause things to mess up. Well, then later, Stampin' Up! Kind of revised their opinion about this, and now it's actually better if you don't put your hand at the top and you just very lightly go, and you just very lightly shift off to the right or to the left if you're left-handed when you're done with it. So again, I'll just show you. So you just go down and to the right or to the left, and it's very, very gentle. So really, fast views is about being very, very gentle, and then you will find you have real good luck with it. So I will just go ahead and put this together so I don't attach it to anything by accident, because it is a very strong adhesive. All right, now let me talk to you a little bit about mini glue dots. This is what they look like. And you get a lot of them in one of these little containers. It's 300 dots, and in my world, that's 300 bows. So of course I like to put bows on with my mini glue dots. So I have a pre-tied bow here, and I just open it up and press that on. And then again, because you know, sometimes when you pull this off, you'll pull the bow off and the mini glue dot will stay on there. So what I like to do, I actually use a different paper piercing tool, but I don't have it handy, so I'm going to use the one with glue on. But typically, I would use the one without glue, and I would just push it away, and then the glue dot stays on the bow, and then, like for example, I can put it exactly where I want to on my project. So if I want to put it right here, I can. And it just helps make placement a lot easier. Of course, you can use mini glue dots for sequins, which I've done many times. There's a lot of things you can use mini glue dots for. One thing I think that people forget is that mini glue dots stick really, really well to our glimmer paper. And so if you need to attach something to a piece of glimmer paper, that's that glittery paper that Stampin' Up! Carries, you can attach it with a glue dot and it will stay in place. Okay, so that's another one that I use. Then the other thing that I use a lot in my videos are dimensionals. So Stampin' Up, whoops, let me pick this up. Stampin' Up! Recently introduced a new kind of dimensional. The one they've had forever is just our our regular dimensional. Sorry about that. And those are pretty standard size, so they fit, you know, like right here. Look how good that fits. And you can add a lot of dimension to your cards. Here's a card swap that I did for a recent on stage, and you can see that the coffee cup is popped up beautifully. And then I also have this little corrugated heart popped up. And so it just adds dimension to your projects. And the nice thing is now that they've introduced these mini dimensionals, and again, I resort to my paper piercing tool because these are kind of hard to get off. I mean, maybe it's just because I have fake nails or something, but to me, I actually do better if I pull them off with a paper piercer and then put it on my project wherever I want. So they're really, really tiny. Let me put one right up here by this other one so you can see. Actually, you probably can't see because that's white on white. Let me put it on this little cardboard piece. So there's a regular size one, and here is a mini. So I'll hold that up to the camera so you can see. These are great. They fit into all those little places that we used to have to cut dimensionals in half for. Now we don't have to. So you can set them in wherever you want and get all that lovely lift without having to sit there and chop dimensionals in half. So there is an example of that. All right, so let's see, what do we have left here? Oh, just one thing, and that is how I attach my ribbons to my projects. I know that many of you have seen me do this, and so this is not going to be a big surprise. But for those of you that are fairly new to Stampin' Up!, there's a couple of ways that you can do ribbons. So I'll show you the more traditional way that most demonstrators use, and that is they take their ribbon, they cut it just a little bit bigger than the area they want to attach it. They take their snail, they put a little snail on both sides, stick their ribbon down on one side, bring it across, and ta-da, it's on. That's a really good way to do it, unless you're completely abnormally worried about the ribbon coming off, which I am. I don't know, I've had this problem ever since I started stamping in 2000. Oh, and I just can't get over it. So what I do is I use Scotch tape. So this is basically the same thing. Just cut your ribbon two sides, and then I attach one side with Scotch tape, bring it over, and attach the other side with Scotch tape. And you've seen me do this countless times, and you've wondered why I don't just do it this way. I don't know. It's just a K thing. It's just a problem I have, and so this is how I've done it forever. So yes, I'm kind of a big fan of Scotch tape. I probably should buy stock because I keep it. I have multiple rolls of Scotch tape in my house, and I just really like it for attaching ribbons, and that's that. All right, so those are all of the different ways that I use adhesives on my videos. So I did want to share that with you, and I did want to make this so that I could refer new people to this video who maybe aren't as familiar with adhesives as perhaps you are. But thank you for your patience, and thank you for allowing me to share this with you today. I truly appreciate you, and I hope you have a wonderful weekend. Bye-bye.